We have a special guest here that we're honored to have. Reverend Cohen has arranged. Reverend Cohen has been working on a movie that he is doing, the day that Harlem have saved the king. Mm-hmm. And this movie has been very moving, to say the least. But it also speaks, and I think today when we think about the Joker movie that has come up, and we look at the area of mental health, very little has been done in that area. So it's so prophetic how the timing has come up. And so as Dr. Barbara Lucas is here teaching with us today, he happened to have stopped by. And we're going to have him to come and say something to us just for a few minutes. This man of God who continues in the spirit of our ancestors and continue in the spirit of his father. So we're going to all stand and receive for a few moments Dr. Martin Luther King III.
Good morning, and thank you, and let me thank God, Dr. Lucas. I am certainly honored to be with you and each of you as you are teaching women and men, preachers, not a style of ministry, perhaps. And I was enjoying you, so I feel ill-prepared. I certainly apologize for an interruption. That was not my intent. I wanted to continue to hear and learn. As you, sister and brother, know, may know, I certainly am the oldest son of Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And while I have a ministry and a mission, I'm not a preacher. Although, since I've been around preachers so long, some people accuse me of preaching from time to time. But my mission and ministry revolves around creating a consciousness within the world for peace, equity, and justice. Dad used to say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I can't be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. You can't be what you ought to be until I'm what I ought to be, because our destinies are tied together. And in this day and age, that becomes more true than ever. At this particular moment, my wife and I have been in New York now for 3 days, 2.5 days, just meeting, but we came to engage in a filming project. And Brother Al Cohen and others reached out about the time when my father was stabbed here in 1958. And it's amazing because even he said if he'd sneezed, he would not have been able to accomplish the mission that he did, which was a very robust amount of work in a very, really short period of time. We can live to be 100 years old. And this is not to disparage or criticize, but we may not make the kind of contribution that he and his team were able to make in about 15. So, Dad had an unusual connection to God, because there are many people who can preach, great preachers, can share the word like no other. And Dad was gifted with the ability to preach and teach and actually walk the path to create the change that still needs to occur in our nation called the United States of America. We know these are critical times. And even though we may not agree with some in leadership, we've got to pray for our leaders. Our president. I don't know many things that I can agree with the president on, not many. But that's not the point. We have to pray that he becomes a better leader in spite of himself. That's really important because it is really himself that it's about for him. If my dad and mom were here, they would be challenging us, I believe, around the triple evils. Dad talked about the eradication of poverty, racism, and he said militarism, but I've added violence because I see militarism and violence as connected. These evils are chomping at our bits and tearing us apart as a society. We are so much better than the behavior that we are exhibiting. And God is not through with any of us yet. And so I want to leave you with a brief challenge because it is so important that we honor and receive your teaching. And, you know, we always have to keep an open mind because one of the things that I've come to realize is Dad was first and foremost a Christian minister. But he also understood that it was important to work with other faiths. So he worked with our Jewish brothers and sisters. He worked with our Muslim brothers and sisters. He worked across denominations. And he understood that we as people have more in common than we do apart. He borrowed the teachings of Gandhi. Started with Christ, but the nonviolent philosophy that Gandhi adhered to and utilized in South Africa and in India, he used those teachings to change and transform our nation. Because certainly one could have, and he could have embraced a different philosophical point of view. But some would not have heard the message. But because he embraced and adopted nonviolence, people of reasonable minds would have to look at what was happening and say, you know, maybe I don't understand all of this. I don't like what I see. But we all have the propensity to see that which is wrong if we open our eyes. Today we see some police misconduct as it relates to African American young men. And there's no difference today other than the fact that each one of these devices that we all have are able to capture that. So Black Lives Matter may have started off with black women and black people, but it has grown to all people who are concerned about goodwill in our nation. And that is because we have the propensity to see that which is wrong and unjust. And most of us want to be correct, want to do right. So we have to continue to create that climate in our nation so that we can get to peace, equity, and justice for all. My mom took me to our undergraduate school, which was Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And at that institution, there's a statue of the educator Horace Mann. And under that statue are words inscribed. They made an indelible impact upon my life when I was about 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. Because I had to read those words again and again. Be ashamed to die until you've won a victory for humanity. As I analyzed that, I said, wow, that is monumental. But you know, we can win a victory on our street. We can win victories in our schools. We can certainly win victories in our places of worship. Some may win victories in our city, and some may win victories in our state. Some may win victories in our nation, and some may even win victories in our world. All those words mean are be ashamed to die until you've done a little something to make the world in which we all must live a little better than it was when you arrived. Thank you for your ministries. Thank you for having us today. And may God continue to bless each and every one of you always.